The next few weeks were strange. Not exactly normal, but better. My mom and dad were trying at least. They gave me back my old room, and while there were no grand apologies or big heart-to-heart moments with my dad, the silence was different. There was an unspoken understanding that things couldn't go back to how they were before, but that didn't mean it was the end. I still worked long hours at the gas station, though Rick was more lenient now, letting me take days off when I needed them to focus on school. Slowly, my grades began to improve again, and while I still felt exhausted, I didn't feel like I was falling apart anymore. It was a fragile piece, but it was something. Lisa? She hadn't spoken to me since that day at school. Every time I saw her in the hallway, she'd look right through me as if I didn't even exist. And honestly, that was fine. I didn't need her approval. But then came the phone call that I never expected. It was late one evening when my mom handed me the phone. It was Lisa. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my heart pounding. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever this conversation would bring, but I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. I pressed answer. Matt, Lisa's voice was tentative, almost hesitant. I need to talk to you. My breath caught in my throat. What do you want, Lisa? There was a pause on the other end. I could almost hear her thinking, weighing her words. She started, then stopped herself. I'm sorry. For what I did. For the lies I told. I shouldn't have. She cut herself off like she was struggling with the words. I felt the tension in my chest tighten. I wasn't sure how to respond, how to let the words sink in. After everything, after all the damage she'd done, could I really just forgive her? You hurt me, I said quietly. You hurt Mom and Dad too. I don't know if I can just forget that. There was another pause. I understand, she said finally. I don't expect you to. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I don't expect anything in return. I wanted to tell you. And with that, the call ended. I sat there for a long time after, staring at the phone. It wasn't an apology I'd ever imagined. There were no excuses, no blame shifting. Just the simple acknowledgement of what she had done. I didn't know if it meant we could ever be close again, but I appreciated the honesty. It was a start. The weeks after Lisa's unexpected apology were filled with uncertainty. I didn't know how to act around her. We were living under the same roof again, but the tension between us still felt like a wall I couldn't break. She avoided me for the most part. I saw her at the dinner table, but we barely spoke. She kept her distance, and I kept mine. But I noticed little things. She would help out more around the house, she'd keep her voice down when arguing with Dad, and for once, I didn't hear her badmouthing me to anyone. Maybe it wasn't much, but it felt like a shift. A tiny one. I didn't forgive her yet, but something in me was beginning to soften. Maybe it was the apology, or maybe it was just time, but it didn't hurt as much to be in the same room with her anymore. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step. The real change came a month later. I had a shift at the gas station when my dad walked in. He was holding a bag of groceries, looking uncharacteristically awkward. I froze when I saw him, unsure of what to say. It had been months since he and I really spoke. He walked up to the counter and set the bag down. You're looking better, he said, his voice lacking the usual edge it always had. Thanks, I mumbled, still unsure of where this was going. He cleared his throat and seemed to hesitate for a moment. I talked to Lisa. She told me she'd apologize to you. I nodded slowly. Yeah, she did. And you're okay? He asked, his tone softening. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm trying. He shifted uncomfortably, then looked me directly in the eyes. We're both trying, Matt. Your mom and I. He stopped, clearing his throat again. We want to help. I know it's not enough, but we want to be part of your life again. I know I messed up. And I can't undo what happened, but I can try to make things right. If you'll let me. I stared at him for a moment, my heart thudding in my chest. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for, some kind of acknowledgement from him. But how do you let go of years of resentment and hurt in a single conversation? I don't know if I can just forgive you, Dad, I said quietly. But I want to try. I want to rebuild something. Even if it's small, even if it's slow. He nodded, his face softening. That's all I'm asking for, Matt. I know it'll take time, but we'll do it together. No more secrets. No more lies. I felt a lump in my throat as I finally spoke the words that I hadn't allowed myself to say for years. I missed you, Dad. His face softened even more and he put a hand on my shoulder. I missed you too, son. Let's take it one day at a time. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I might just have a future with my family. The next few months were like learning to walk again. Everything felt new. It wasn't an overnight transformation, and the wounds didn't magically heal. But something had shifted. I started to feel more grounded. My grades continued to improve. I worked fewer hours at the gas station, which gave me more time for school and to just breathe. My parents and I still had our moments of awkwardness, but I could feel the effort from both sides. We were trying, and that was enough. Lisa and I barely spoke, but she was still there. At dinner, sometimes she'd make small talk. Other times, she'd sit quietly. I didn't know if we'd ever be close again, but the resentment wasn't there anymore. We both seemed content with letting time work its magic. But the biggest change came one evening when I came home late from a shift. I walked in the door, exhausted as usual, and found my mom and dad sitting in the living room, waiting for me. They both looked serious, but there was something different in the air. "Sit down, Matt," Dad said, his voice calm but firm. I sat down slowly, confused. "What's going on?" My mom took a deep breath and looked at me with a mix of apprehension and resolve. "Matt, we've been talking." I nodded, still unsure. Dad cleared his throat. "We've been thinking about how we can make things right, how we can support you more. And we think it's time for you to focus on your future, without all the stress of trying to do it all on your own." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Mom spoke up. "We want to help you with college, Matt. You don't have to work yourself to the bone anymore. We'll cover tuition, and you can focus on finishing school, building your future. You deserve that." I stared at them, my mind racing. "Wait, are you serious? You're really offering to pay for college?" Dad nodded. "We've had our differences, son. But this isn't just about making up for the past. It's about giving you the chance you've earned. You've worked hard, and we want to help you succeed." For a long moment I couldn't speak. My eyes stung, but I wasn't sure if it was from the exhaustion or from the sheer surprise of it all. "Thank you," I whispered. "You have no idea what this means to me." They both smiled, but it wasn't a forced smile. It was genuine. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being seen, like I was more than just the son who messed up. I felt like I mattered. Later that night, I sat in my room, thinking about everything. I wasn't back to the old me, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy to rebuild everything. But for the first time, I felt like I had the tools I needed. And the best part? I didn't have to do it alone. A year later, life felt completely different. I had completed my first semester of college, on track, focused, and with a clearer sense of purpose. The scholarship I'd worked for had come through, and with my parents' support, I didn't have to worry about tuition anymore. The weight of that burden had been lifted, and I was able to breathe for the first time in a long while. My relationship with my parents was still a work in progress, but we had come so far. We had our family dinners again. Real ones, not the tense, silent affairs they used to be. We talked, we laughed, and for the first time, I felt like we were just a family. No more blame, no more walls. Lisa, we were still distant, but we'd found a sort of truce. She would occasionally ask me how school was going, and I'd ask about her friends or whatever nonsense she was into. It wasn't close, but it was peace. And for me, that was enough. There were days when I still struggled, when I'd remember the pain of being kicked out, the loneliness of having nowhere to turn, the frustration of feeling invisible. But those days were fewer. The life I was building was slowly starting to feel like it was mine, and I wasn't going to let the past define me. Jordan, of course, was still in my corner. We hung out whenever we could, and he always kept me grounded. He was the one who reminded me that I had fought through the hardest parts, that I had earned every little bit of progress. It wasn't easy, but it had been worth it. One day, as I walked across the campus quad, feeling a rare moment of calm, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. I was growing. I was living for the first time in a long time, and it felt like the possibilities were endless. The past was a part of me, but it didn't have to control me anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally starting to believe in myself again. Update. Graduating from college wasn't just an achievement. It felt like a personal victory. The last few months before graduation were a blur of final exams, late-night study sessions, and the constant pressure to keep it all together. But I did it. Despite everything I had been through, despite the years of uncertainty, I walked across that stage with my diploma in hand. It was a moment I never thought I'd get to experience. I'd spent so many nights wondering if I'd ever have a chance at something better. And now, here I was, with my degree in business, standing in front of a crowd of people who'd supported me when I needed it the most. The moment I threw my cap into the air, I didn't feel like the same person who had walked out of my parents' house all those months ago. I felt like someone who had finally found their place. After the ceremony, my parents were there, cheering me on, and even Lisa showed up. There were no more grudges, no more silent treatment. We had all come a long way, and in that moment, everything felt right. Felt like the beginning of something new. In the weeks after graduation, I threw myself into the job search. I knew I was starting from scratch, but I had learned a lot in college, not just about business but about perseverance. The work wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt where I thought I wouldn't be able to get my foot in the door. But I didn't give up. One evening, after I'd spent what felt like hours sending out applications and polishing my resume, I received an email that made my heart stop. I stared at the screen for a moment, my hands trembling. It was from a well-known financial firm that I'd applied to months ago. They were inviting me for an interview. Couldn't believe it. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Mock interviews, researching the company, reviewing everything I'd learned. I wanted this job more than anything, and I wasn't going to waste the opportunity. When the day of the interview came, I was nervous, but I held it together. I put on my best suit, took a deep breath, and walked into that office with the confidence I had worked so hard to build. And somehow it worked. A week after my interview, I received the call that would change everything. The voice on the other end was calm, but I could hear the excitement in the woman's tone. "Matt, I'm happy to inform you that we'd like to offer you the position." I froze. "You're kidding," she chuckled. "No, we're not. We were really impressed with your interview, and we believe you'll be a great fit for our team. The offer includes a salary package of $80,000 a year, with benefits." Mix of disbelief and joy. I had worked for this. I had fought for this. And now it was finally happening. I accept," I stammered, trying to hold back tears of joy. "Great," she said. "We'll send over the details and start the onboarding process next week." As soon as I hung up, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Couldn't believe it. It wasn't just a job. It was the start of my career. My first day at the firm was a blur. The office was sleek and modern, and I was surrounded by people who were much more experienced than me. But they welcomed me in, showed me the ropes, and made me feel like I belonged. I had always dreamed of being in a place like this, but it felt surreal to actually be there. My first paycheck was everything I'd worked for, and more. I was no longer just scraping by. I started settling into the rhythm of my new job, handling accounts, making connections, and contributing to the projects that were coming down the pipeline. Slowly but surely, I started climbing the ladder. The job wasn't easy, but it was rewarding. I was finally doing something I enjoyed, and I was being compensated well for it. Every promotion, every bonus, felt like a testament to how far I had come. But what mattered most was how my life had changed. I was no longer living paycheck to paycheck. I wasn't stuck in a gas station, wondering where my next step would come from. I was building a future for myself, and it felt damn good. A few years later, I stood in front of my parents' house, the same one I had walked out of all those years ago. It was a Sunday, and we were having dinner together, something we did every week now. Things had changed so much that it felt almost impossible to believe this was the same family that had once been torn apart by lies and anger. Dad had retired early, and he was now helping manage a local small business. Mom still worked in education, but she was happy now. Lisa had started her own business and was thriving. As for me, I was now working in a senior role at the firm, making a six-figure salary and leading a team of my own. The life I had once thought impossible was now my reality. After dinner, I stepped outside, standing in the cool evening air, watching the sunset. For the first time in a long while, I was content. I had built this life brick by brick. And as I looked back at everything I had overcome, the lies, the struggles, the self-doubt, I realized that the most important thing I had built wasn't the career or the salary. It was the strength to keep going. And with that, I knew that no matter what came next, I was ready.